gunfire earlier, we had been told, probably came from law enforcement, either the Secret Service or local law enforcement who were shooting the suspected gunman in this particular case. And now we're told by the Butler County District Attorney Richard Goldinger that the suspected gunman is dead. Another person at the rally is dead, and the second spectator is described as being in serious condition right now. You must have been so scared out of your mind as all of this was unfolding, Kip. Give us your sense.
You know, I've been trained a long time ago to stay calm, and I actually continue to stand up and look for where the gunfire was coming from, and of course was watching over one to see how Trump was reacting and make sure that he recovered and they got him off stage. But the whole audience, I don't think no one knew how to react at the time. It was a big surprise. Some people probably thought it was fireworks to start with, but as people exited, you heard all kinds of talk about, was it just fireworks, or was someone shot, or just, you know, they didn't realize the president had been shot. So,
Kip, you were only about 40 feet away from the former president of the United States. To get into that rally, did you have to go through metal magnetometers?
Yes, everybody went through metal magnetometers that I understood. You know, they probably had a rack of, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 of them running.
So everybody who got even relatively close to the former president went through metal detectors. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well,
I'm assuming that was the goal. You know, I can't verify that everybody went through, but they were set up to screen everybody.
And do you know how far away the suspected shooter was from the president?
Oh, I've been seeing that.
I would have said if you went off the side there, you were talking
Somebody built
probably
a box
100 foot away,
on top of one
120
of
foot away
those, so the
maybe.
cat looked
And you
like he
think
was
people
in a
that far
tank.
away went
I've seen that.
Wasn't that cute?
It's mopping the floor.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, they were sitting in the stages to the right and to the left, and then there was, of course, people in behind President Trump sitting behind him as well.
Yeah, so that's encouraging that at least security was tight. We don't know how this suspected shooter got as close as he apparently did to the former president of the United States and fired shots at the former president, and in the process killed somebody who was just there. And then this shooter is now dead as well. We heard the Secret Service agents shouting out, "Shooter down, shooter is down, shooter is down." So we suspected that that shooter had been shot by local law enforcement or the Secret Service or the FBI or the military, all of whom protect a former president of the United States just as they protect a sitting president of the United States. Any other points you want to make, Kip, before I let you go?
No, I mean, it was after just a number of the shots came off that you could tell there was a different caliber gun shot. So, you know, there was a lot going on there, but I'm saying it was after 5, 6, 7 shots, I heard a different caliber gun being fired. So, I assume that's the Secret Service with their guns. They had him identified and was shooting at him.
Yeah, well, Kip, I'm happy you're okay. And a lot of other people are okay. This could have been, God forbid, even a whole lot worse than it already has been reported. Kip Tom, thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate it very much. John Miller is still with us, our Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst. You want to give us, John, your analysis of what we just heard from this eyewitness?
Sure. I think what Ambassador Tom is experiencing is what we call the fog of war, which is having been there as the eyewitness and remembering it the way he remembers it. But as we have shown this video a number of times, what you hear is 2, 3 rapid shots before the president goes down. And when I say goes down, his agents are yelling down. He grabs his ear and he puts himself down on the ground, and then they go around him. But what you hear immediately after that, you hear multiple shots. And that's law enforcement returning fire against the shooter. Now, the question that keeps coming up, and we can get enlightenment on this from Jonathan Wackrow, is how does a shooter get into a rally or close enough to shoot a presidential candidate? Their magnetometers that are checking everybody coming in. What we are being told by my law enforcement sources now is that the shooter was field outside the perimeter of this event, this fenced-in event, that he made his way to a low rooftop of a single-story building. And when you look at this aircraft, you see that it's a giant field surrounded by these low buildings. They're like one-story buildings, possibly
That building
stables.
still was the same, brother.
That he made his way to the rooftop.
Brothers got a video. They
That
got
he
in on
fired
a
a
tent.
number of shots, and that the counter sniper teams in place, likely for just this purpose, probably returned that fire, because that's where you hear that 6 or 7 shots of a different caliber in rapid succession, and then total quiet. So that, well, these we are told by law enforcement authorities, and that will be the beginning of this entire second chapter, which is, who is he? Where is he from? What do we learn from the background investigation, talking to his friends, his family, digging into his social media, the search warrant that's going to be being drawn up right now as we speak to hit his house or whatever house he's staying in, these phones, computers, documents, and so on, because they're going to need to know, is this a lone individual who did this completely on their own? Is this person part of a known group, either one that exists in life or exists
Sounds like
online?
a person talking.
Are there others in this group? We are at the very, very early stages. But I think one of the things that Jonathan Blackrock can help us with is, at these events, there's the counter assault team. They're ready to engage anybody that comes forward as a threat, especially an armed threat. But there are also the counter sniper team. Now, this is a very challenging environment. You've got this field, this wide open field. You have the president at former president at one of his rallies, and there's no high ground around it except for these low rooftop buildings. And I'm being told by sources that the shooter had climbed up onto one of these single-story rooftops and used that to shoot over the fence into the event. He wasn't inside the event. So, Wolf, that is how the information is shaping up. Now, I'm going to preface this saying, of course, this information is early. It will evolve and possibly change, but that's the facts that law enforcement is working on right this minute.
And we're told once again that the suspected shooter has been, quote, neutralized, meaning he's been shot and killed by authorities, law enforcement on the scene. Jonathan Wackrow, explain to our viewers what a counter assault team and a counter sniper team from the Secret Service is all about.
Well, these are tactical assets that the Secret Service, has in place, that support the working shift. So, when you think about what we typically see with, the President of the United States, former presidents, is, we typically see the working shift. Those, the women and men that are close protection around the protectee. But supporting that for, the tactical support is the counter assault team. That is, for all intents and purposes, that is a tactical team that works to support the protection of the former president, and their job is just as John Miller stated. They are there to suppress any immediate threat that presents itself, or they, in some instances, may draw the fire of an attack again to allow the working shift enough time to move the protectee away. The long-range threats, and this is what we think that this incident is involving, the long-range threats are mitigated through the counter sniper team. And again, that's another tactical asset. What they're looking at is out beyond the security perimeter. They're looking for that long-range threat, that rifle range threat that could potentially present itself. And again, what we don't know is whether or not they were the ones that engaged this this shooter, or if it was a post-stand or a member of local law enforcement that worked along the perimeter, to neutralize that threat. But right now, what we're seeing is, again, a different side of the Secret Service. You're seeing how they react in these dynamic situations, and we're seeing in introducing the counter assault team, the counter sniper team, you're starting to see other assets.
Look how stupid
We just
people
don't
look.
talk about it in the
They look
media
so
that often, but
uneducated.
it's really important to talk
Oh,
about
I'm so
that right
sorry.
now, because they played a very important role in successfully resolving the situation to move the president, the former president, off that stage and into that limousine.
And once again, we're told that at least one spectator at this Trump rally in Pennsylvania is dead. Another was injured in this shooting at the rally for Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. That, according to the Butler County District Attorney Richard Goldinger, who has been speaking to CNN. The suspected shooter, he says, is also dead. He did not know, Goldinger did not know if the shooter died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound or was shot by someone else during the course of the incident. The DA tells CNN the injured spectator is in serious condition right now. Priscilla Alvarez is joining us over at the White House right now. I understand we're getting some reaction from the White House. Priscilla?
Well, we're still waiting for a reaction from the White House. We have asked the White House for comment on the matter. I should note, Wolf, that when this incident did happen, the president was at Mass. He is currently in Rehoboth, where he has a residence. Right when he departed church, right around 6:23, is when reporters asked him if he had been briefed. He had said no. We now know, however, that he has been continuously briefed by senior officials. That includes Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Now, we should remind viewers, the president is not here at the White House. He is at his residence in Delaware, and we are waiting to hear reaction from the president on this incident. Wolf?
Secret Service that the shooter at the Trump rally was killed by the U.S. Secret Service.
He was shot and killed.
He was shot and killed.
This was not a self-inflicted.
This was not a self-inflicted wound, so this is new, critical information coming in that the shooter was killed by the U.S. Secret Service, and an attendee, as we reported earlier, was also killed during the incident. The U.S. Secret Service confirming that, and this is really interesting, Wolf, because we heard from John Miller earlier saying that he is learning from his sources that the shooter was actually on outside the perimeter on a low roof and was able to obviously, gain access to former President Trump and this other attendee, and another that was killed and another one that was injured, and harmed them. And killed two. And so we're now learning that the U.S. Secret Service was able to locate that shooter, kill the shooter, and the threat. Now, what is interesting here is normally what you will hear is that there was an all clear, that they ruled out that there are any other gunmen or accomplices. That has not happened yet. I will say, well, typically in these situations, it is a lone gunman, but that does not mean that is always the case. And so that is also something that I'm looking out for. Is there an all clear now that we know the Secret Service has killed this shooter? Has the threat there at the scene been completely eradicated? Yeah, and even if he was in this particular incident a lone gunman, that doesn't mean this individual didn't have contact with a group of other individuals who may have been planning this and behind this whole incident. We don't know. We don't know, and that is something that law enforcement right now, I guarantee they are going through any chat sessions, anything online to look for any clues as they try to, identify the shooter, figure out who the shooter might have been talking to leading up to this event, and find out if the shooter organized or worked with any accomplices. That's all part of this, all part of any investigation. And this, as we noted, Wolf, is being led by the U.S. Secret Service because you're dealing with a former U.S. president and a presidential nominee for the Republican Party here. Yeah, the Secret Service is responsible for protecting not only sitting presidents, but former presidents, and major Republican and Democratic presidential candidates as well. It says Secret Service job, so we're watching all of this very, very seriously. I think Dr. Sanjay Gupta is still with us. Hold on, Sanjay, for a second. Elena Trina is getting some more information. I understand you're with an eyewitness, Elena?
Where was I at? Sure.
I am, yes. Hi, Wolf. I'm here with Joseph Mine. He was sitting actually behind Donald Trump in the bleachers today when this all unfolded. I'm going to let him share exactly what he saw. It was a very harrowing moment that he was there for.
I saw it weird because I was downloading that video.
I was attending the rally. Yeah. It seemed initially like firecrackers went off. It was very confusing initially because I knew it was gunfire, but I couldn't quite tell where it was coming from. It sounded like it was coming from behind the bleachers, and the man in the bleachers, kind of to the right of me in the bleachers, took a gunshot wound to the head. Was killed, and another woman. I don't know exactly where she was in the bleachers. I think she was either behind me or to the right of me. And she got around she got hit in the forearm and hand. It looked like, but if she was wounded, she wasn't killed.
Can I ask you how you're feeling? Obviously, you just witnessed something terrible happen. A lot of chaos was in the room. How exactly are you feeling right now, Joseph?
You know, it's something you don't expect. You know, it's a bolt out of the blue, so it's very shocking. It's just, I think a lot of people in the crowd just thought it was fireworks going off. I knew immediately it was gunshots. I knew they were close. And then when I saw someone get hit and go down, that's when I knew it was probably serious. You know, it was a lot of confusion. It's just massive confusion, you know, throughout the event. I saw Donald Trump get hit. It looked like he was either, I was running my camera at the time, but it looked like he was just turning his head to the side. It looked like he got grazed in the right ear with a bullet. I kind of saw that go on, and then I looked down, I saw that the man, you know, died in the bleachers. It was just complete pandemonium. Like there was a bit of a delay, like there was a lot of confusion, but immediately, you know, it seemed like more gunfire erupted. I couldn't figure out where that was coming from, and then, you know, there was a state policeman there. I believe a SWAT team, you know, showed up relatively quickly. They jumped the side. There was next to the bleachers. They jumped the bleachers and started clearing the bleachers. And then I helped carry the body of the man down out of the bleachers, and they took him to a tent behind the bleachers. We put a towel over his head, but he's deceased.
You were telling me before when we were chatting briefly that you never had a chance to make it to a Trump rally, that this was your first time. Would you feel safe coming back to another Trump rally?
Yeah, you know, it's a very random event that happens. You know, I feel safe generally where I go in the country. You know, I think the problem is we have everyone seems very angry, and you know, it makes you kind of, you know, I'll go to a Trump rally again, but I'll think twice. You know, you definitely want to have your head on the swivel. It just seems like there's a lot of angry people out there, and I'm not shocked that this happened. I'm shocked that it happened next to me. Obviously, you never anticipate that to happen. It's just horrible. You know, we shouldn't be at a level of political discourse in this country where this is going on. It feels like it's 1960 again. You know, it's horrible.
Can you describe for me, Joseph, what happened after you saw the shots? And I remember, I mean, I was there as well. Secret Service was screaming for everyone to get down. They quickly tried to clear the area. I'm just curious what that process was like for you in the aftermath.
Very confusing. Like I said, I think everyone was in the bleachers. It was initially confusing when the gunshots erupted. Half of them thought that was fireworks. I think someone thought they were playing a joke. And you know, the people were close to the people that got injured and killed. You obviously knew it wasn't a joke, and it seemed like there was a push-pull in the crowd, and that is one half of the crowd on the far end of the rally thought it was some type of weird joke. The other half of the crowd knew it wasn't, was trying to push or impress upon the rest of the crowd that this is serious. And I think everyone got the idea very quickly that it was a dangerous situation, and everyone just started hitting the deck. And you know, kudos to the Secret Service. You know, again, you know, when you're in these situations, a second feels like it's an hour, but it seemed like authorities were there very quickly. It just seemed to me, like I said, I was sitting there, it seemed like the rounds came from behind, and they got this, and they hit the gentleman in the head. You know, he got a gunshot wound to the head, and the other lady was injured, and then I saw President Trump, you know, get hit, and it looked like his right ear, but it seemed initially everyone was like half the crowd was in shock, and the other half thought it was some type of weird joke. And it just, it took a bit for everyone to get a good understanding of what was going on. So.
You mentioned that you had spoken with the person who ended up falling. I believe you said, you know, with his whole family.
No, his family watched it happen. So they were in the bleachers when he got hit and he went down. I think they were trying to figure out what was going on. They were screaming for help.
That's weird.
The body was, they put a towel over the man's head. The body was removed from the bleachers. Then the police came back, you know, right after and tried to move the family, but they were all in shock. They weren't processing what was going on. The man was definitely, he was dead the minute he was hit. I mean, it was something that reminded me of a Zapruder film from Kennedy. I mean, it was his head snapped, and that was it. And I caught it out of the corner of my eye, and you know, and then there was just pandemonium. And again, you know, it's Pennsylvania. You don't, you know, you're out in rural Pennsylvania. You don't really anticipate this is going to happen. It happened.
You mentioned, and I'm sorry, I know this is very emotional for you as well. You mentioned that, you know, this was your first Trump rally. How are you feeling about the election now? What are you hoping to see moving forward. We've already seen a lot of statements of support from across the aisle come in for the former president. I can tell you too from our sources that they say that Donald Trump is okay, that he is at a local facility being treated. But I would love just your view on, I know you came here today to support the man that, the former president. I'm curious how you think about this now. I know it's a hard question given the chaos that we're currently in and the adrenaline that we're both feeling right now, but if you could share any of that.
It solidifies my support. I understand, people believe that Trump's, well, they know he's bombastic, they don't really like him, he's a very polarizing figure, he has an abrasive personality, but I just believe he has the best interests of the country at heart. And you make a point. The man's a billionaire. He could be sitting in the, like you said, you were sitting at the rally joking about it. It's like I could be sitting in the Mediterranean on a yacht enjoying my life, but I'm not. I'm trying to help run the country. It puts in perspective there's a real cost for that. I mean, there's some people that really want him dead. And to me, this is just ridiculous. Like, we have a lot of political violence in this country. It comes from false, it's not so much from the right, it comes from everywhere. And it just needs to stop. JFK and RFK, you've had Martin Luther King. Now you're going to, attempt the life of Reagan, and now you have an attempted, assassination of Trump. It's just ridiculous. And it just, I don't think it's a gun problem. I don't think it's a violence problem. I think there's a lot of angry people that just have too much interest in politics, and it's a zero-sum game to them.
Really?
Politics shouldn't be a zero-sum game where someone wins everything and someone loses everything. And I think this is a result of that. People that came today, were very happy. They were here to support Trump. But you can when you talk to people in the crowd, there's a tenseness. They don't want to talk to family members about politics because it just gets too angry. So I don't know what to tell you, but this needs to stop.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I very much appreciate your time, and I stay safe tonight. I hope you get home safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like, there's just one person. We talked to many people today who have been leaving the rally who are very emotional. They're angry. They're upset. I think Joseph had a particularly harrowing experience given what he had saw and seeing a man be killed here tonight. And so a lot of emotions. I'll tell you, I'm currently in the parking lot. No one is moving. I think they have put a hold on everyone from getting out. We've seen cars parked here for a long time. So everyone still, who I'm talking to, says that they're still processing this. They're still trying to sort through their emotions after what had happened today. Wolf?
Yeah, Elena, it's clearly a crime scene right now. That's why the situation is unfolding as it is right now. We're watching all of this develop right now. I want to go to Anderson Cooper in New York. Anderson, help us understand what's going on.
Yeah, well, just 8:07 o'clock here on the East Coast, just after 8 p.m. in New York, at the end of a deeply traumatic day. Shots fired at Donald Trump, the former president and presumptive 2024 Republican nominee, at his rally, his final rally before Monday's convention in Milwaukee. The suspected gunman is dead, and so is at least one person at the rally.
And Anderson, here in Washington, the U.S. Secret Service and other federal agencies are now clearly in crisis mode, investigating as a possible assassination attempt of the former president of the United States. What happened at 11 minutes past 6 in Butler, Pennsylvania, just north of Pittsburgh? Awful situation, indeed, very scary and very traumatic.
Yeah, the former president had just begun his remarks when the shooting began. I want to show you the video from that moment now until Mr. Trump was taken off stage.
Oh, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
They could have shot somebody trying to kill shooter.
couple things about that video. You could hear audio during that time. Most of that was the Secret Service talking to one another and to the former president. You could also hear some words from the former president. Initially, when the Secret Service, you saw the former president after the first few shots touch his right ear. Then the Secret Service rushed, realizing what was happening, rushed to cover him. They held him down on the ground as there were more shots. It was once you heard some Secret Service agents saying, what are we doing? Where are we going? Then you heard them saying that the shooter was down. We are clear. I mean, the shooter had been neutralized. They then say, you then hear the former president saying, let me get my shoes. Apparently his shoes may have been knocked off as they knocked him to the ground. And then you hear saying, wait. And that's when you see him raise his fist.
Wait, I don't care if someone
and
shoot that.
come out to the crowd and seeing the words fight. He was then whisked off again, raising his fist. The former president has blood on his ear and the side of his head when he was taken away. He was examined at a local hospital, and according to his campaign, he is fine. But again, at least one person who came to see the former president has been killed. So is the suspected gunman shot by the Secret Service. Another attendee, we believe, has been seriously wounded. Now, we've just gotten the statement from President Biden. He said, quote, I have been briefed on the shooting of Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I'm grateful to hear that he's safe and doing well. I'm praying for him and his family and for all those who were at the rally as we await further information. Jill and I are grateful to the Secret Service for getting him to safety. There's no place for this kind of violence in America. We must unite as one nation to condemn it. Now, the president is expected to speak on camera shortly. We will bring it to you live. We've just gotten a 2-minute warning on that, so we'll bring you that. As we wait, I want to bring you CNN's Evan Perez with the latest information about the shooter. Evan, what are you learning?
Well, Anderson, this is clearly now being investigated by the federal law enforcement, by the Secret Service and the FBI and other agencies as a attempted assassination, possible attempted assassination of the former president. And so that's what is guiding this investigation now as we speak. We do know also that the shooter who fired these shots, it appears this person was outside of the perimeter, which might explain why perhaps there wasn't something to catch on, because people are checked by magnetometers before they come into the rally. This person would not have gone through those magnetometers. So again, that's part of the investigation. Anderson, at this hour.
We have about a minute warning. We're told that the president will be making remarks. Evan, there was an eyewitness. There was a man at the rally who claims, told the BBC on camera that he saw. Here's the president. Let's talk. Let's see him.
Based on what we know now, I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to him shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And so I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that people, and we have more detail to come relative to other people may be injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to get that for you all. But the bottom line is, the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. I mean, everybody needs to come back. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I'm able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that there's thoroughly investigated what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, and I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that they put together and to give you an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do. Okay?
Mr. President, do you think there was an assassination? Do we have that?
I don't know enough. I have an
just
opinion,
woke
but I
up.
don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
Are you worried, President? What's the security family, Mr. President?
I must go back, sir.
So President Biden speaking, back with CNN's Evan Perez. Evan, just in terms of the investigation, who's in lead? Is it the Secret Service that is the lead agency on this? Evan is talking to his sources. John Miller is standing by with us. John, talk about what the latest on what you're hearing.
So the Secret Service has the lead on this for the moment, which is to protect the president, rescue the president, get care, and meet that threat, which apparently is what happened. The gunman who was on a low rooftop outside the event, shooting from that low rooftop over the stands there, is dead. At this point, the FBI comes in. The FBI will assume the larger investigation, working hand in glove with the Secret Service. They're going to bring in their crisis management team, their critical incident response group. A lot of FBI resources are heading to meet the agents from the Pittsburgh field office because they have to go about finding out who is this dead gunman, where does he live, get a search warrant for that residence, get a search warrant for all his phones, electronics, accounts. They've got to delve into him and figure out, is he acting alone first and foremost?
Hey, John,
was he
John,
working
John, I'm going to come back to you shortly. I have on the phone right now the Butler County District Attorney, Richard Goldinger. Mr. District Attorney, I'm sorry, we're talking in these circumstances. Can you tell us anything you know about what happened, what is happening right now?
Well, thanks for having me, Anderson. I don't know a whole lot more than what has already been reported. I can confirm that there is one spectator that has passed away. There is a second that is in serious condition that was taken to a local hospital, and that the shooter is dead.
And is it clear to you the exact location of where the shooter was, how he was able to get a shot? I mean, it doesn't seem that he had gone through the autonomous, obviously.
No, he was outside of the ground, so to speak. So, quite frankly, I don't know how he would have gotten to the location where he was, but he was outside the grounds, and I think that's something that we're going to have to figure out how he got there.
In terms of the scene right now, how many people are still on scene? It's obviously an active crime scene, but I know there's a lot of rally attendees. It's hard to get everybody out of there.
Yeah, it's chaos. I mean, I have been told it is chaos, and
His name is Dick
I can't
Goldinger.
even get the number of people that are there, but it's just, it's really crazy.
He's on the phone with Dick Goldinger.
And you don't have any information on the identity of the alleged shooter?
I have not been given any of that information yet, and I'm not sure that we know that at this point.
When you saw this, what did you think? I mean, this is an act like this is not something we have seen in a long time in this country.
I was saying we haven't seen this since Reagan in 1980, and it's mind blowing. You know, maybe we got a little lackadaisical about it, that this wouldn't happen to a president or a former president, but it's crazy. And I mean, sadly, maybe it's just the state of our current political situation, but I mean, you just wouldn't even think it would happen, especially in where I live in Butler County. You would not expect this.
Can you talk a little bit about Butler County? I know it's, I'm not sure how north of Pittsburgh it is, but you just talk a little bit about the community?
Sure. So, I mean, we are literally the county directly north of Allegheny County, which is where Pittsburgh is situated. We are about 65% Republicans. It is partially rural, so it used to be a farming community, but now that Pittsburgh has moved north. We have some more called urban sprawl, so to speak, in the southern part of our county, so it's pretty diverse in that sense.
Well, Richard Goldinger, I appreciate your time. And again, I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. We'll continue to check in with you. Thank you. Wolf?
Thank you, Anderson.
Anderson, thank you. The Pennsylvania Republican Senate candidate, David McCormick, was there at this rally in Pennsylvania. He's an eyewitness to what unfolded. He's joining us right now. David, thank you so much for joining us. Give us your eyewitness account of what you saw, what you heard, and what you believe happened.
Stop.
Yeah, well, thank you, Wolf. I was in the front row, so the president was speaking out to the crowd, looking at the crowd. I was told 15,000 or so, and I was seated to his right in the front row, and he had actually just announced me and invited me up to the stage, and then said, no, I'll have you come up in a few minutes. And about a minute or so after that, we heard a series of shots, and I think 7 or 8 shots, just pop, pop, pop. I was a former Army guy. They sounded like a small caliber weapon, but obviously I'm not sure about that. And it was like all of a sudden just chaos. The Secret Service immediately covered the president, jumped on top of him, and the crowd obviously all went immediately to the ground, to people on their knees or laying down on the ground. And then the president got up and sort of was surrounded by the Secret Service. You see this, you could see him just with a little bit of blood on him, and his sort of fist came out in defiance. And then over my shoulder, behind me, it was clear that somebody had been hit. And so people around this gentleman were trying to administer first aid, and he was clearly, this person was clearly injured. It seemed severely. There was a lot of blood, and eventually some police officers came up and carried him to where I hope he got to urgent care, and obviously praying for him now. So that was what I saw. I saw the immediate attack on the president, and I saw the fact that this person behind me was injured. But you can imagine with that kind of incident happening, very hard to know what's coming. In fact, I'm not sure whether it was one shooter or 2 shooters. I couldn't really tell. It seemed like the shots were coming from my front. So from the president's left, but which would have made sense why the person behind me was hit. But I'm not sure if there was a shot coming from other directions. So it was, as you might imagine, it was chaotic and confusing in the moment.
I can only wonder what you were going through, David. You and I know each other. Did you immediately drop to the ground to try to protect yourself? Were you standing? What was going on from your first row vantage point?
Well, I immediately dropped down, and then I realized somebody was hit, and then I stood back up to see whether we could get the right medical care. And then people around me were saying, "You got to stay down because maybe there's still more shooters, or maybe the shooter's not been apprehended." And the president had just literally called me up and made a big deal about me. So conceivably I could have been somebody they would have targeted. So I eventually got back down, as most people did. But my initial reaction was, boy, is somebody behind me hurt? How do we make sure they get the right care? And it was such a dense crowd. Getting the right medical assistance back into the crowd took a few minutes. But that was my initial reaction.
Yeah, we know one of the individuals who happened to have been at this rally was shot and killed. Another is in serious condition, we're told, right now. Very, very disturbing developments indeed. And I was watching it live, and I did hear Trump say some nice things about you and invite you to come up on the stage. And he said he'll come up on the stage later and talk. And I'm glad you didn't go up on the stage right away as soon as I mentioned your name. God forbid you could have been up there as well. And I'm sure that's going through your mind right now. Were you alone? Was Dina there with you? Or did you have friends with you?
I was with Mike Kelly and Dan Muser, among others, who are 2 sitting congressmen in Pennsylvania, and some other supporters and friends. And the thing you start to worry about is making sure that everybody has the help they need to be able to get out of there once the panic started. So we all stuck together for a bit, and hopefully people are on their way.
So what happened after the former president was removed from the stage over there, taken to that vehicle, and we're now told he went to a medical facility and he's okay, thank God. But what happened? Did everybody just stay there? Did law enforcement say, don't move, this is a crime scene? What was unfolding?
Well, I'm still there at the moment, so the traffic is gridlock, as you might imagine. So I'm still there. The area where the president left from, they blocked that whole area off. So many of the ways that people came in or the way to possibly exit was blocked. And then they pushed the crowd to what the original entry was. So you had the people walking and sitting in their cars, and I think the general feeling was one of disbelief. We sort of all had witnessed something that we still were trying to process, and it was it was a Trump rally. I think this is my second Trump rally, but it was kind of energetic and light, and people were it had a good feel to it. And then all of a sudden that was all shattered with these shots, which was obviously very scary for everybody involved.
When I was watching it live on television, David, and I heard that noise, the bang, it immediately sounded like gunshots to me. And then when I saw the former president raise his hand towards the right side of his face, and we saw some blood, I immediately realized there must have been gunshots. Did you immediately realize that as well?
I knew that whatever it wasn't okay. If it was fireworks or something else, I knew something was amiss. And then when it was more than a couple, I did think it was gunshots. It was just pop, 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 as you heard when you saw the video. So I concluded pretty quickly it was gunshots, and sadly I was right.
Yeah, it was sadly the gunshots indeed. And the shooter apparently was outside what they described as the perimeter for security reasons. The perimeter is where they really have heightened security, magnetometers. When you went there, and you're the Republican Senate candidate in Pennsylvania right now, did you have to go through metal detectors, magnetometers to get where you were? Front row seat?
Yeah, I did. I was screened at a metal detector. I was personally screened. Everybody had to be. So obviously we'll have to get to the bottom of how this might have occurred. But when you have a rally of 15,000 people that's outside, obviously the security challenges are significant, but it felt pretty tight to me, and I'm surprised somebody could have been outside the perimeter.
How are you doing right now, David?
I'm okay. I'm processing and
trying
to be a voice of reason and make sure.
Yeah, that's that guy how he felt. He said, I'm okay. I was like, yeah, he didn't get shot.
It just can't be tolerated, and and recognize that this is a line that's been crossed here that is just horrific and unforgivable, and we need to have cooler minds prevail.
Yeah, well said. Pennsylvania Republican Senate candidate David McCormick, who had a front row seat over there. He was an eyewitness. Appreciate your joining us very, very much. Glad you're okay right now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Anderson, back to you.
Wolf, I want to go next to former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow, also senior national security analyst Juliet Kayyem. Juliet and Jonathan, before I talk to you both, I just want to replay what happened, and just for our viewers who are just joining us, but also because I want to talk over some of the details, particularly with you, Jonathan, of what we see the Secret Service do in terms of covering the former president, not immediately evacuating him until, and also just remind viewers that the audio that they're going to hear is largely Secret Service agents talking among each other while they're covering the former president, and you hear some word from the former president about his shoes, and then saying wait, and then doing the fist in the air. So let's play that.
That's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Congratulations.
So we're gonna move to class. What's up?
That's crazy.
A number of things. First of all, the shots, it seems to me that the shots come in sort of three separate volleys. There's the initial ones in which the former president feels something on his ear, touches his ear. It seems like there's a space, then a second volley of shots. Then once the Secret Service actually have him on the ground, there then seems to be one much more audible shot and particular screaming from the crowd to the left behind the former president, and screams from that crowd over there. And I'm wondering if that may have been the shot that killed somebody behind the former president. Talk a little bit about the Secret Service, why it's interesting to me they did not move him until they got the clear that the shooter was down.
What's so crazy is there's millions of cameras out there, and this is the only angle they're giving us.
And it just speaks to how dynamic and unpredictable these situations are. But this is something that the Secret Service constantly trains for. And as I said earlier, there are agents who are on that stage that I work with, that I trained with, and I can attest that we have practiced for these situations thousands of times. And what we saw was near flawless execution by not only the Secret Service that we're seeing, but what we don't see. So let me first talk about what we are seeing. We're seeing the Secret Service react very quickly upon identification of a threat. Now, at that moment, they may not know that it's actual gunfire, but it's a perceived threat, and they're going to action off of that. They're going to go to the protectee, as we saw. The president was already moving down, which was probably an instruction given to him a long time ago, even as president, to get down in the moment of any type of threat. But the Secret Service agents quickly came in.
Plus they all watch the
put
movies, you know what I'm
themselves between the former president and any type of potential threat. Again, basically creating a body bunker around the former president. While they're down on the ground, they're doing a rapid assessment. There's a lot of information coming into their earpieces about what's going on around the perimeter. Was it a shooter? What the situation is. We heard the verbal commands. Again, you have to think they weren't screaming and yelling at each other. They were very composed. Their instructions to each other were very clear. Again, that all comes down to their training, tactics, and experience. The president was not moved until they confirmed that the shooter was down, and you actually heard an agent say, safe to move. Most likely that was the detail leader for the former president, giving the instruction that it's safe to move. The Hawkeye team, as you hear, Hawkeye's up, Hawkeye's around. Hawkeye is the tactical team. That is the counter-assault team. Again, they're there to support the ship, address any secondary threats that may present itself, and make sure that the president's movement from one terrain feature, the podium, to the armored limousine is done in a safe and efficient manner. So they'll move along with them. So once all those components were in place, that's when we see the president moving off stage. What we don't see, though, is exactly how the Secret Service responded to the threat, the shooter, and how they neutralized that. So what we assume at this point in time, since it was a threat from outside of the security perimeter, that this was a long-range threat, probably a long-range rifle, that needed to be addressed again from another long-range mitigation, most likely from either the counter-sniper team or from other types of tactical units that were on site from the Secret Service. So there's a lot going on in a short amount of time, but again, I can't stress enough, this is what the Secret Service does.